Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures, and today we're going to be doing another episode of our Planet Zoo mod spotlights. We've got a lot of these to smash out before the wetland animal pack comes out, which I'm very excited to go through. But yeah, we're going to be doing part 66 of our Planet Zoo spotlights, where we take a look at some of the wonderful mods people have been making and talk about some of the wonderful animals that we share our world with. So similar to yesterday's episode, this is going to be quite a quick one because we've got lots of fish and things, but that obviously doesn't really hurt too much. We've still got a couple birds at the end. I'm sure you guys will be very excited about that. So we're going to be starting today. We've got three types of peacock bass. So we're going to be starting off with the Orinoco bass, or peacock bass. So let's see if we've got him over here. Really wonderful little guy here. So this is Cycla orinocoensis. So these are known as the Orinoco peacock bass, which are a very large species of cichlid, and they are native to the Rio Negro and the Orinoco river basins in northern South America, and it mainly occur in blackwater rivers. And despite its name, it's actually it's not the only peacock bass that can be found in these areas, and there's other species that can be found there, but you can kind of tell them apart by the colors and such. Where it overlaps with the last species, these guys prefer more slow-moving and shallow waters, and they're able to actually tolerate more turbid water than other species of bass, so that gives them a competitive advantage. In terms of their length, they can reach about 62 centimeters in length, and adults easily recognized by their kind of like three large golden edge spots here. So you can see these quite large black spots with the three edges, and there's a fourth spot on the tail, as you can see here. And the lack of dark markings on a column. So you can see there's not really many dark markings on its body, but you can tell these three distinctive spikes. Yeah, really, really cool. And I believe peacock bass in general, they're kind of like mid-level predators, so they feed on whatever they can, really. And yeah, it's just a really cool peacock bass. I really like the design of it. So this was again done by Leaf and Buffzoo, and most of the animals in this are done by Leaf and Buffzoo, of course. But I think it really did a great job. And then another little thing about these guys is that there actually may be another species with the Rio Negro and the Orinoco populations potentially being split, but this species, this would be keep the same name as the Orinoco species, would keep the name Cycla orinocoensis, but might be split. But yeah, wonderful fish here, done by Leaf and Buffzoo, of course. Next, we're going to move into another one done by Leaf and Buffzoo. We've got another bass. This time we've got the red peacock bass. So this is same genus, same everything, close relative. So really cool guy here. So these guys are freshwater fish, or tropical freshwater fish that live in lagoons in South America, and like lagoons, waterways, and floodplains. They tend to prefer slow currents with plenty of cover, such as logs and submerged trees. Red peacock bass are kind of very characteristically different from other bass because they've got this really, really bright red belly that really helps you tell them apart, along with these three spots on their side as well. And the color can vary from like gold red to olive, and it changes to yellow to red closer to the belly, as you can see here. An adult specimen can get about similar in size to a Orinoco peacock bass. They get about 35 to 60 centimeters long, so about 1 to 1.5 feet, or 1 to 1.2 feet, 1.1 to 2 feet about there in length, and about 1 to 3 kilograms, or 2.2 to 6.6 pounds in weight. So not the largest fish, but they're definitely like mesopredators. And in particularly favorable conditions, they actually can get up to like 7 kilograms or 15 pounds. And like other cichlids, they're active predators and pretty much will eat anything that's will get into their mouth. So that's really, really cool. And really, really cool fish, if I do say so myself. Another one done by Leaf and Buffzoo. I think most of these are ports from Fishing Planet, but really cool to see these wonderful guys here. So next we're going to move on to our last species of bass. Really, really cool guy here. So this is the spectacled peacock bass. So we have a look at these wonderful guys here. So the spectacled peacock bass is a very large South American cichlid, which is a prized game fish as well. And they reach up to 1 meter long, so that's the largest of the one, about 1 meter or so, and about 13 kilograms or 29 pounds. And is one of the largest. It is the largest cichlid in the Americas, and perhaps the largest one in the world. So it's got another pretty big claim to fame, which is pretty cool. with only the giant cichlid, Tanganyika's giant cichlid, reaching similar proportions. So these guys, in terms of habitat, they live in the Orinoco and Rio Negro rivers, and also found in different rivers in the Amazon, things like that, especially Guyana. And they have been tried to be introduced to other areas, but they've not managed to establish in Florida or Texas, and they have flourished in Singapore and Malaysia, where they are invasive. So you can see the kind of main difference is obviously their size, but they're generally more elongated compared to other peacock cichlids, peacock bass, I mean. And they're quite variable in color, and it has been suggested that some variants were separate species or males and females, but it seems that like only in 2012 it was established that the dark ones are kind of like non-breeders, with the breeding adults kind of are more olive green and lack the pale speckles, but 3 broad bands on his body. And during the breeding season, some males may develop like a large bulbous forehead, and between the two extremes are like these intermediate patterns here, so these guys would probably be intermediate patterns. And it seems like these guys are highly variable. There's no other peacock bass species that has as much variation as that. And these guys, kind of similar to that, these guys are quite large and eat whatever they can. They are, as I mentioned, they're the largest species of cichlid that we know of. Really, really cool. And they obviously get their name spectacled cichlid because they have all these little spots. They've got like all these little speckles on them. Really, really cool. Awesome fish. That was also done by Leaf and Buffsuit. So we're going to knock these out of the park. So that's awesome. Next, we have got the Tetra, which is a really cool fish here. This was also done by Leaf and Buffsuit. Let's see if we can find them. There we are. Wonderful little fellow, if I do say so myself. So these guys, also known are a species of dog-toothed tetra, and they're typically found in the Amazon basin in tropical South America, and were first of 4 species described in their genus. So the most notable feature of this species is kind of these really 2 long fangs that you can see on the mouth there, which they use to impale their prey, which is usually smaller fish. And they get quite big for tetras. They reach a standard length of about 30 centimeters or a foot long, but they can reach up to 51 centimeters or nearly 2 feet long. And there have been reports of larger individuals up to about like a meter or so in total length and 17.8 kilograms. But it's likely to be confused with another species, H. onurus. These guys are kind of a smaller species. And in terms of aquariums, they're kind of sold as either the saber-toothed barracuda, the vampire tetra, or the saber-toothed barracuda. And they're popular species for large aggressive aquariums. And they can require a large aquarium that can be mixed with large species as small fish will be seen as potential prey. So that's really, really cool. Let's check if that's the right species. Yeah, Sorbonetes. Yeah, that's the right species. Really, really cool guy, if I do say so myself. Really, really awesome fish. So, yeah, that's our next one. Look, we're just flying through these. Next, we're having a look at the Koray parrotfish. Really, really cool fish we got going on here. So, let's have a look at you. So, these guys are kind of a fairly larger species. They can get about 40 centimeters in the wild, and in aquariums, they're usually a bit smaller. And they have really, really interesting color differentiations. So you can see this is a female, and there's one in here. This is the male. This is what the male looks like. There's lots of quite dimorphism between them. So the color on the flanks, as you can see, it's like a bluish green to pink on the belly, and they're blue as well on the anal fins and things like that. And they all are very striking and colorful. And then you can see this one here. This is more the female here. It's a little bit more drab. Really, really cool. The species don't start out that striking because they are all born as females, and they start as females, so they live in a harem with one male and several females. And when that male defends a territory, and when the male of that dies, the next largest and strongest female will become the next male of the group. So it's similar to things like clownfish. So these guys would all be females, and then you have the big male here that's kind of the big boss, which is pretty cool. Juvenile and females, as you can see, they're like a pale grey-brown with these faint streaks on their backs and their sides as well, so that's really, really cool. In terms of the biotype, they can particularly be found in shallow waters from like 2 to 18 meters, and they're mainly located around coral reefs. Oh, well, they're a bit high there. We're having a bit of an adventure. Let's see if we can find the male. There we are. So, At high tides, they can look for flat areas on the surface through the day, and they typically graze on algae. And once a male forms a territory of many tens of square meters that will contain a number of females. The habitat extends from India around the Ranuku Islands near Japan to New Caledonia, and can be found on the north coast of Australia and the Great Barrier Reef. And in the wild, they're typically herbivores, so they feed on algae and corals, and they'll break parts away as it as well. Loose parts of dead coral are grounded to sand and all that. And that actually helps them digest. And they are very active fish, so they need a lot of food. Often, a lot of them will be die prematurely because they're kept too small and don't get enough for good food in aquariums. They actually need food all day long, so they need to eat a lot of food, really just eat a lot of it. Really, really interesting fish. I'm a really big fan of these guys. Also done by Leaf and Buffsoo. So next we've got another one. This is by Leaf, Nicholas Lion Rider, and Buffsoo. So Nicholas Ryan Rider throwing his hat into the fish mod. So we got a wonderful fish here. We have got the Blackspotted Piranha, or just known as the Blackspot Piranha. These guys are a species of piranha that is native to the Orinoco River basins and the Llanaus region in Colombia and Venezuela. And this is a species that can reach about 27.9 centimeters or 11 inches. And they're a very popular game fish. So like other species of piranha, they're a carnivorous species. So they feed on a wide variety of fish, carrion invertebrates, and other aquatic animals. So these are like similar to the red-bellied piranha. These are the ones that kind of like get in big schools and then eat something big. That's just kind of how it is. And the name Cabrina actually comes from their native language, which comes from the people of the island's Caribs, who have a reputation of warriors who raided nearby islands and also participated in cannibalism, according to the conquistadors of Spain. And they're very high, and this kind of get this name because they're very, very likely to cannibalize each other. They have a very high propensity for it. So they kind of get their name, the Black Spot. Not necessarily Black Spot, but their scientific name. Really interesting how like all of that's affected by history. Really, really wonderful fish. It came out rather wonderfully, and it's also got this black spot here. That's where it gets its common name from. Really came out wonderfully. So last and most definitely not least, we've got a very interesting little guy here. So this guy was done by Ginger, Toast, and Leaf. We've got the Matamata Turtle, so really, really cute guy here. These are juveniles because the adults are way too big, but I thought this kind of shows up its perfect size. So these guys, also known as just the Matamata, these guys are a freshwater turtle that are found in South America, primarily in the Amazon and Orinoco basins, and there is two species. I believe this species is Chelonis fibrini, and the other one is Orinocoensis. So that was recently described in about 2020. So it seems like there was a deep genetic split between the two populations, and they decided to name them two different species, which is pretty cool. And these guys, as you can see here, they're kind of a sedentary turtle with these large flat heads with many like tubercles and flaps of skin to make them break their outline. They also have barbules on their chin that they use to detect prey, and they also have this like snorkel nose so they can breathe without moving too much out of the water. And these guys have a black or brown carapace and it's oblong as well. That can measure up to 95 centimeters or 37 inches at adult age, and a full adult weight gets about 21 kilograms. And the Matamata's plastron, as you can see, is kind of reduced, narrow, and hinged, so it allows them to kind of move a bit better. And they have all these shapes and like spikes and try to have a messed up shape, so it's not like straight linear, so it helps break their outline and helps them with their camouflage. And their plastron and the carapace here is typically like a little bit more brownish and greyish to try and look like dead leaves. And their neck is longer than the vertebra under the carapace, and they actually have these flaps on the side as well to help break their outline. And hamstrings actually show a pink to reddish tinge on the underside of their plastrons, so the carapaces and plastrons that disappear as they grow. As I mentioned, their habitat is like blackwater streams, the slow-moving, stagnant pools, marshes. They range from northern Bolivia to Ecuador, Colombia, Venezuela, and the Guianas, and also north and central Brazil. They're strictly an aquatic species, as they prefer to sit in shallow water. but they use their snorkel nose to breathe, which is pretty cool. Let's have a look at this one over here. So, as you can see, their appearance is kind of to make them look like fallen leaves and stuff, and they actually participate in suction feeding. So what they'll do is that they'll open their mouths really fast, so that creates a vacuum, so any prey next to them will get sucked into their mouths, and then they snap it shut, and then the water will be expelled, and then the fish will be swallowed whole. And a lot of turtles will use that method. I think it's really, really cool that these guys have kind of perfected it, since they're kind of sit-and-wait predators. In terms of breeding, the males and female display the females by extending their limbs, lunging their heads towards the females with their mouths agape, and moving their lateral flanges, as you can see here. And nesting for these guys occurs from October through December in the upper Amazon, and they have 12 to 28 spherical eggs that are about 35 millimeters in diameter, which are deposited in a clutch. So in terms of their breeding, in terms of their diet, they're mainly carnivorous, so they feed pretty much exclusively on invertebrates and fish that are aquatic as well. It seems like the 20 wild Matamata turtles had their stomach contents examined, and it showed that they pretty much eat exclusively pretty small fish, and they predominantly feed at night in muddy water with limited availability. Though, however, the turtles are adapted to hunting these conditions with fine eyesight, similar to other nocturnal reptiles. They also have the skin flaps that are very sensitive to nearby movement, which is pretty cool. And they have a specific method of seizing their prey. So what they'll do is that they'll move the prey into shallow areas of the water, surround the prey, and wave their front legs to prevent them from escaping. Once surrounded, the Matamata turtles will open their mouths and contract their pharynx, which causes a rush of water to put that pulls the prey into their mouth. So they had a really interesting way of hunting. Really, really cool animals, if I do say so myself. Matamata turtles are so awesome. Also done by Leaf and Ginger Toast. Ginger Toast did a wonderful job with these guys. And we're going to move it on from reptiles and fish. We're going to move on to a couple birds. So this one was also done by Ginger Toast and Leaf. We've got the Eurasian curlew, or the common curlew, which is a really cool bird. These guys are one of the most widespread species of the curlews, and they breed all across temperate Europe and Asia, and they're often referred to as just the curlew, as in Scotland as well. So they're the largest wader in their range. They typically get about 50 to 60 centimeters or 20 to 24 inches in length, with a 89 to 106 centimeter or 35 to 42 inch wingspan, and get to a body weight of between 410 to 1,360 grams, or 0.9 to 3 pounds, with this mainly greyish brown colours that you see here. And these very long curved bills, with males and females pretty much looking identical. But yeah, really, really cool guys. So these guys are also a migratory species. So they're typically found wintering in Africa, Southern Europe, and South Asia. And there's been actually vagrant individuals being seen in places such as Nova Scotia and the Marinas. But they are also present all year round in milder climates such as Ireland, the United Kingdom, and the adjacent Iberian coast, which is pretty cool. And similar to other species of curlews and other things, they're generally waders, and they're highly gregarious outside the breeding season, so they like to hang out in big groups. In terms of breeding, their nest is usually put on a bare site of taiga, or meadow or similar habitat, with a clutch size of about 4 eggs, which are laid in April or May and incubate them for a month until they begin to hatch. So it's been observed that curlews tend to nest close to common kestrels, which often offers them protection from predators, and such as corvids, and even the kestrels predate on these nests as well. So it seems like just being close to these kestrels actually really helps their survival, but it can harm them. It's just a trade-off that a lot of species have. And these guys, in terms of their feeding, they feed predominantly on by probing the soft muds and things for small invertebrates, but they will also eat earthworms and crabs if the occasion arises. They eat a lot of those things. That's why they have evolved this long curved beak to stick into mud and things, which is really cool. And they were formerly classified as least concerned with the IUCN, as it was expected they were generally rarer, but it seems their population was a bit bigger than expected, so they've been propped to near threatened. And their numbers are actually noticeably declining, especially in the United Kingdom and Ireland, with a quarter of the population disappearing. In 20 years, the population is estimated to be declined more than 50% in England and Scotland, and more than 80% in Wales, and actually more than 90% in Ireland. So that means they're actually trying to work, and they're trying to get them on the red list of endangered species in the UK and like other islands like that. And they actually are one of the species in which the Agreement of Conservation of African Eurasian Migratory Water Birds is included on. So yeah, really, really cool. Really did a great job, and then we'll have a look at the babies. Look at the little babies, so cute, so cute, so cute. That's an adult. Pretty sure it's the babies, yeah? What's the baby? That's the albino one as well. I'm trying to find the baby. They must have bred. Oh, that's alright. There it is. They're probably a bit big, you can see. A bit big. That's okay. Really, really wonderful. Next, last but most definitely not least, we've got another mod by Ginger Toast and Leaf, and this is actually based off the Reeves Pheasant by Ron Mayron. Really, really awesome mod that we've got going here. We've got the ring-necked pheasant. We'll have a look at the wonderful male here. So the common pheasant is a bird in the pheasant family and comes from the Latin, obviously, pheasant. They are native to parts of Europe, like the northern foothills of the Caucasus and the Balkans, but have been widely introduced across the world as a game bird. And in parts of Europe, they're often just called pheasant. And ringneck pheasants are both the name used in South America and a collection of subspecies. These guys are also a well-known game bird, and they're kind of very important around the world, and actually one of the world's most hunted birds. They've been introduced to a lot of regions, New Zealand, America, places like that, as farm stock, and actually no distinct breeds have been developed, but they are considered semi-domestic. And they can get pretty big, and they have all sorts of different variations to them. Body weights can usually range between 0.5 to 3 kilograms, or 1 to 7 pounds, with males averaging about 1.2 kilograms, or 2 pounds or 10 ounces, and the females averaging 0.9 or 2 ounces, 2 pounds, about that. And their wingspan is generally 56 to 86 centimeters, or 22 to 34 inches in length, with some difference in nominate subspecies and things like that. The females, you can see, they're much less showier. The males here, they're like quite bright with these mottled colors, and also the wattles, this red wattle that they've got here, and the black head. These guys are kind of a lot more drab, a lot more dull, with a molded pattern, and they measure about 50 to 23 centimeter long tail, and 53 centimeters with a 20 centimeter long tail. That's about 8 inches or 9.5 inches. With juvenile birds not being too dissimilar from that. Just look at my little guys here. So we're not going to worry about the taxonomy. There's a lot of taxonomy. In terms of their ecology, they're native to Asia and parts of Europe, with their original range ranging from the Balkans, the Black Sea, Korea, Taiwan, mainland China, places like that. And they're typically found in woodlands, scrubs, things like that. And eventually they often be found in like marshlands, because they can obviously survive in places like that. They're actually able to fly short distances, but they prefer to run. And they can they usually do a cock, 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 a kind of call to alert other ringneck pheasants. And their flight speed is about 43 to 61 kilometers an hour, or 22 to 33 kilometers. But they have been cruising, but they can be chased, and they can fly up to 90 kilometers if they really need to get away from something. So in terms of nesting, they often will nest in scrapes, where they'll line some grass and leaves, and they'll hide it under a hedge. Occasionally they will nest in haystacks and things like that. The males are polygamous, which is typical, and they often have a harem of many different females. Common pheasants also produce a clutch of about 8 to 15 eggs, sometimes as many as 18, but usually between 10 and 12, with these pale olive eggs in colour, and they are laid over a 2 to 3 week period in April to June, with an incubation period of about 22 to 27 days. And the chicks will stay near the hen for several weeks and yet leave the nest while only a few hours old. And after hatching, they grow quickly, flying after 12 to 14 days, and they resemble adults after about 15 weeks of age. And they're quite generalist, so they pretty much eat whatever they can in terms of animal and food type stuff. They'll feed on fruits, seeds, grains, berries, leaves, also small invertebrates like ants, and caterpillars, things like that. They'll also even eat small invertebrates such as lizards, field voles, small birds, and small mammals can also be eaten. And in terms of introduced species, they've been common and introduced in places all across the world. They've been known to introduce in Europe, North America, Japan, and New Zealand. Obviously, a lot of those are for hunting, things like that. And there's often a negative impact of these guys because they nest parasitism is common in pheasants, which can often be really hard for these guys and other native species. They tend to compete as well, and can lead to decreased populations of things like bobwhites, which are another game bird that people want to have around. They often compete with native birds generally for resources as well. And there have been changes in population, luckily. There's been some decreasing in the United States, especially in agricultural areas. But these guys are typically bred and hunted and shot in a great number in Northern Europe, especially in the UK. They have like an open season to hunt them. And also places like New Zealand, mainly they are introduced to places like that for hunting. But yeah, apparently they eat good, and they often hung for a time to improve that meat. And yeah, really, really cool birds. I'm a big fan of these guys. So really, really awesome pheasants. Ginger Toast Leaf Fuel did a wonderful job with these wonderful pheasants, and I think they'd be a great animal to have just if you want to have more birds in your park. Really, really awesome. Came out wonderfully. Big fan. So yeah, got to thank everyone that made all these mods today. It's as mentioned, it's a shorter one, but that's because we just got a lot of animals to highlight. But yeah, I think this is a good place to end the video. So I really, really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to click the little icon to get notified if I upload anything. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.